はるかさん、寝起きはダメですね。はるかさん、ヤマトに乗ってるつもりでいました。
撃を集中。指定の味方からの支援を頼む。これじゃ目も当てられねえ。総員体感だ。全艦援護射撃を頼む。
はるかさん、これ私悪くない？
派手にやったろうじゃねえか。手法をぶちかましてやんな。手法をぶちかましてやんな。
鈴風秀にゃんさん、こんにちは。今日は原神ではないのですね。なんていうゲームですか？
左舷に魚雷確認。浸水発生。ありったけのポンプ。
はるかさん、こんにちは、ニコニコ。これはワールド、オフ、ワーシップです。鈴風秀にゃんさん、なるほど面白そうですね。はるかさん、今対人戦で、こちらの味方も敵全員、人が操作しています。ニコニコ。
前艦、援護射撃を頼む。
鈴風秀にゃんさん、対人戦もあるのですね。はるかさん、これから、対愛戦をしてみます。鈴風秀にゃんさん、しばらく見させてもらいますね。頑張ってください。
一丁派手。
はるかさん、ありがとう、ニコニコ。
敵の潜水艦を発見。
敵の巡洋艦を発見。手法をぶちかましてやんな。よーし、こっちが優勢でい。攻撃始め。マロンたちの勝利は目前でい。油断せず一気に行くぞ。攻撃始め。マロンたちの勝利は目前でい。油断せず一気に行くぞ。どーれ、マロンの指揮もなかなかなもんだったろ。
鈴風秀にゃんさん、高評価をしておきますね。はるかさん、ありとう、ニコニコ。
やってやろうってんでい。みんなついてきな。優勢。一度火がついたらあっという間にこうなっちゃうよ。直撃。私にかかればこんなもんよ。敵軍の艦艇はバラバラだ。勝利は目前。敵軍の艦艇はバラバラだ。作戦終了。さて温泉にでも入ってくるか。
鈴風秀にゃんさん、勝利おめでとうございます。はるかさん、ありとう、ニコニコ、これからまた対人戦やりますね。鈴風秀にゃんさん、対人戦頑張ってくださいファイトはるかさん、ラジャ。
私が艦長？じゃあ撃ちまくっていいの？いいよね？
鈴風秀にゃんさん、そろそろ落ちますね。配信頑張ってください。また来ます。はるかさん、ありがとう。
一度火がついたらあっという間にこうなっちゃうよ。温泉にでも入ってくるか。
はるかさん、お昼ご飯食べようっと。もうすぐお夕飯だけど。
Every player of World of Warships has asked the following question at least once. Why do battleship shells sometimes deal either 1,000 damage or 10,000? And why do I receive so few credits after intense and hard battles? Understanding the game mechanics will help you make a greater contribution towards the victory of your team. One of the most important indicators of any player's efficiency is the amount of damage they inflict in battle. So let's begin with the damage-inflicting mechanics and the structures of ships in our game.
We'll take upgraded Japanese battleship Fuso with 57,100 HP as an example. A warship is a small floating city with a highly complex structure. So, how can one model such a complex structure in a game without turning it into an incredibly detailed and boring simulator?
First of all, instead of several dozens of compartments, we divide a ship just into the bow and rear ends, a citadel, superstructure, and casemate. We add different values to each part of the ship. Fuso's bow end has 3,700 HP, rear end 3,400 HP, casemate 8,500 HP, and superstructure 1,500 HP.
Naval engineers tried to group warships' vital compartments, such as the engine room or magazine, at the center of the hull and protect them with as much armor as they possibly could. This part of a ship is called a citadel. We certainly need to reflect its importance in the game. If a ship's citadel is destroyed, she will no longer be able to fight. That's why we decided to allocate all the ship's HP there, 57,100 HP for Fuso.
Now it's time for the most important part. We're going to introduce a special virtual part called the hull. Fuso's hull has 42,800 HP. The sum of all Fuso's parts is 117,000 HP, but the HP indicator shows 57,100 HP only.
This means that you need to inflict 57,100 damage to the ship in order to destroy her. The part of the ship you hit and damage doesn't matter. It only affects how quickly you can destroy the ship.
The layout isn't simple and looks odd at first glance. Let's try to figure out how it works using a specific example. Let's assume that a shell dealing exactly 3,000 damage is fired at our Fuso. The shell will inflict this amount of damage to the citadel only. If the shell hits any other less important parts of the ship, it will deal just 1/6 of its damage. For example, if the shell hits the bow end, the Japanese battleship will lose just 1,000 HP of her total amount.
1/6 of 3,000 is 500 HP. Why does the ship then lose 1,000 HP of her total amount? The thing is that when a shell hits the bow end, it damages this part for 500 HP and deals another 500 damage to the hull. However, a most interesting thing will happen after 8 shells hit Fuso's bow end, which, as we remember, has only 3,700 HP. Because of this, it will be destroyed and cease receiving damage.
After that, every shell that hits the bow end will damage the hull only. So each penetration will cause not 1,000 but just 500 damage. By the way, here's a tip for the game. A destroyed part of a ship becomes black. So you don't need to waste your shells on these parts.
Nevertheless, we can destroy the hull by firing just at the destroyed bow end. As a result, the battleship will lose 46,500 HP. If you continue to fire at the bow end after that, your shells will deal just 10% of their damage to the HP bar directly. It's clear that Fuso's rear end, casemate, superstructure, and citadel are undamaged. Therefore, you can deal more damage to them, 1/6 of the shell's damage.
Now, let's assume that the shell hits the battleship's citadel. It won't deal any damage to the hull, but the citadel will receive 3,000 damage without any reductions applied. The issue of what part of a ship to fire at during battle depends on the specific battle conditions. But regardless of what part of Fuso you hit, you'll still need to deal exactly 57,100 damage to send the ship to the bottom.
Our discussion about how damage is inflicted in World of Warships has only just started. You'll learn everything about penetrations and module damage in our next episode.
If you found this video was helpful, make sure to share it with your friends. Leave comments, don't forget to hit the like button, and subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so already. Until next time. In the previous episode of How It Works, we told you about attack aircraft, dive bombers, and torpedo bombers. Today we're going to talk about AA defense, fighters, aircraft HP, and the aircraft carrier deck, which are very important aspects of the new mechanics.
When attacking enemy ships from the air, you'll almost certainly be fired upon by their AA defense systems. AA defenses pose a major threat to aircraft in World of Warships, automatically attacking any squadron breaching the boundaries of their area of operation. There are 3 such areas of operation, which don't cross over. Short range for guns with a caliber of up to 25mm, medium range for guns up to 85mm, and long range for guns over 85mm. Within these areas, the AA defenses deliver continuous damage to a random plane rather than to the whole squadron, with the targeted planes changing periodically. Continuous damage is delivered to a single plane from each squadron, regardless of the number of squadrons in the AA defense system's area of operation. You can enhance the damage delivered by all 3 areas through the AA Guns Modification 2 upgrade, the Basic Firing Training Commander skill, or the November Echo Set 7 signal.
In addition to delivering continuous damage, long and medium-range AA guns can also fire special shells that explode in the air. When aircraft travel within the explosion radius, they receive serious damage. The number of explosions and the extent of the damage can be increased by using the AA Guns Modification 1 upgrade and the Advanced Firing Training skill, respectively. You can also boost AA defense performance by selecting a priority sector. Simply press the tilde or O keys and then select the required sector. Please note that by increasing the AA defense performance in one sector, you will decrease it in the remaining sectors. Enhancing the combat performance or changing a priority sector requires time, but this can be reduced by using the manual fire control for AA armament skill.
Another way to temporarily boost the efficiency of AA fire is to use the defensive AA fire consumable. While active, it increases the damage dealt by AA defenses per second, as well as the damage inflicted by the explosions of shells fired from medium and long-range guns. You can reduce the effectiveness of enemy AA defense fire by actively maneuvering and changing your squadron's speed, as well as by using the aircraft armor skill. However, AA defenses don't pose the only threat for aircraft. Enemy fighters can also be very dangerous, which, with the introduction of the new mechanics, have become consumables.
Fighters can be used by aircraft carriers and other types of ship that previously had the catapult fighter consumable available. Now, this type of consumable is called fighter. If fighters are summoned by a battleship or a cruiser, they will follow the summoning ship and patrol the nearby area. If your aircraft carrier is detected, the fighter consumable is enabled automatically. You can also use this consumable when controlling your attack squadron. A group of fighters will come to the point on the map where the consumable was enabled and will stay around that point for some time. Their patrol area will be indicated on the mini-map.
The first enemy squadron to reach the fighter patrol area will be attacked and can lose as many planes as there are fighters in the fighter group on patrol. You can increase the number of fighters forming the summoned fighter squadron by using the Direction Center for Fighters skill. The fighters will leave that area following a successful attack or once the patrol time is over.
When your aircraft group comes under attack from fighters, you have a chance to shake them off by using all of the resources available to you. If the fighters can't reach your planes within a certain period of time, they will stop the chase.
So how can you reduce your losses? Actively maneuver, avoid AA shell explosion areas, watch out for enemy fighters, and keep your eye on your squadron's combat capability indicator. Each indicator cell represents a single plane, with a green cell showing that the plane is fine, yellow, the plane is damaged, red, seriously damaged, and black, the plane is destroyed or returning to the carrier. Black-colored cells can also mean that a squadron took off in an incomplete state.
You can enhance the combat capability of all of your squadrons by using the Survivability Expert skill and the Air Groups Modification 2 upgrade. The combat capability of one of the 3 attack squadrons can be increased by using the upgrade from the 4th slot. Additionally, torpedo bombers starting from Tier 8 are equipped with the Repair consumable, which allows players to partially restore the combat capability of the air group.
If you manage to keep your planes safe, they gain the maximum altitude after the attack before returning to base via the shortest route possible. On their way home, they neither detect enemy ships, nor are they detectable by the enemy themselves. However, while gaining altitude or coming in for landing, they are vulnerable to AA defense fire. You can increase the speed at which your planes return to the aircraft carrier by using the Air Groups Modification 1 upgrade.
Your planes need time to return, but you don't. You will immediately find yourself back on the deck of your aircraft carrier. This is a very important part of the ship where the planes available to you are located. At the beginning of a battle, the majority of aircraft carriers have one complete squadron of each type, plus a few planes in reserve. The Flight Control Modification 1 upgrade allows you to increase the maximum number of planes on deck.
After one of your planes gets shot down, another plane is prepared for further missions. However, if you lose an entire squadron immediately after taking off, and you're preparing to send another squadron of the same type, it will be incomplete. It takes time to prepare the replacement planes. You can reduce the time this takes by using the Air Supremacy. With the new mechanics, the number of planes available to you is unlimited, but they require preparation time, meaning that constant losses in your squadrons will impact and reduce your efficiency in battle.
As always, you can find more detailed information about all of our new features in various articles on our portal. Until next time, and good luck in battle, Commanders. Update 0810 introduced the branch of researchable Italian cruisers into World of Warships, and semi-armor-piercing shells came with them. Discover all there is to know about the new ammunition type in this episode of How It Works.
Semi-armor-piercing shells combine the features of high-explosive and armor-piercing shells. At the same caliber, they have better penetration capabilities than high-explosive shells and deal damage that's comparable to armor-piercing shells. They have excellent ricochet angles and can't over-penetrate.
Let's take a look at how the new shells work. Tier 10 Venezia loads her 15 guns with semi-armor piercing shells and waits for Minotaur to show her sight from behind an island some 3 kilometers away. Sounds like a certain frag, right? But instead, you get a dozen non-penetrations. Let's reload and shoot at Yamato, as she has turned her bow towards us. 12,012 damage. I'll explain why.
The rule of 14.3 calibers works for semi-armor piercing shells in the same way as for armor piercing ones. This means that the new shell penetrates armor that is 14.3 times thinner than the caliber of the gun that fired it at any angle. The ricochet check isn't performed at all.
If the armor is thicker, the angle at which a shell hits becomes important. An angle between 0 and 10 degrees always results in a ricochet. From 11 to 15 degrees, the probability of a ricochet reduces. Finally, a ricochet is impossible at angles from 16 to 90 degrees.
For comparison, the majority of armor-piercing shells in the game ricochet at angles starting from 30 degrees, and only at 46 degrees will there be no ricochet. However, the absence of a ricochet doesn't guarantee damage. The armor still needs to be penetrated.
Here, semi-armor piercing shells work like high explosive ones. Their penetrative capability is not affected by either distance, speed, or the penetration angle. A shell from Tier 10 Venezia pierces 54 millimeters of armor and less. I repeat, it happens regardless of the firing range and penetration angle.
After penetrating, the fuse immediately arms and the shell explodes directly behind the armor. Remember though that semi-armor piercing shells don't create an area of damage inflicted by shrapnel and a blast wave, i.e. the so-called high explosive cube that damages modules within it. There's no chance to cause fires either.
Now, let's consider a scenario that's impossible in the game but is very graphic nonetheless. Venezia fires at the side of Italian Tier 4 Alberto di Giussano. She has a 24mm thick armor belt and 20mm anti-torpedo bulkhead for her citadel. In total, 44mm of armor, 10 penetrations and 0 damage. The semi-armor piercing shells fired from Venezia would penetrate the armor belt and explode before reaching the citadel.
The armor belt and citadel are divided by an empty compartment. As a result, Alberto di Giussano remains undamaged. Of course, situations like this are rare, but it's important to remember that the new shells won't penetrate multi-layered armor. As compensation for this, there won't be any over-penetrations. Therefore, in some cases, semi-armor piercing shells surpass both armor piercing shells thanks to this peculiarity, and high explosive shells thanks to their better penetration capabilities.
Let's return to Minotaur. Now you know that semi-armor piercing shells from Venezia can't penetrate the 101mm of armor protecting her citadel. However, the British ship has only a small area of such armor at the center of her side and a little above the waterline. The rest of her armor is thin, perfect for the new Italian shells. A salvo at the forward end. 8 hits at over 8,800 damage scored. There's no need to look for vulnerable spots on destroyers though. Semi-armor piercing shells penetrate them easily, almost at any angle, and inflict impressive amounts of damage.
Do you think that fragile cruisers and destroyers are unworthy targets? Then remember the salvo at Yamato's bow at the beginning of this video. 7 hits and over 12,000 damage. That's serious enough, right? I think you might agree that not all Tier 10 cruisers can boast damage numbers like these when using high explosive or armor piercing shells.
If your guns are loaded with semi-armor piercing shells, fire at destroyers or aim for the thin armor of the superstructures and ends of well-protected ships. Knowing the advantages of different shell types and switching between them in good time is essential if you want to be efficient in battle. Remember that usual armor-piercing shells will be more effective in some situations.
If you still haven't watched the episodes of how it works about armor piercing and high explosive shells, we recommend doing so as soon as possible. Knowledge is power, Captains.
はるかさん、あと一戦やって、少し休憩します。
私が艦長？じゃあ撃ちまくっていいの？いいよね？撃て撃て撃て、撃ちまくれい！きっと撃ちまくれば勝てるよ。撃っていいよね？きっと撃ちまくれば勝てるよ。撃っていいよね？要は左舷に魚雷確認。要は撃ちまくれってことよね。 苦しい状況を打開するにはどうすれば。魚雷発射。後方に魚雷避けれるよね。後方に魚雷避けれるよね。要は撃ちまくれってことよね。敵の巡洋艦だよ。対空砲限界態勢に移行。要は撃ちまくれってことよね。敵が優勢。ああ、もうこうなったら全力で反撃するしかないよ。
はるかさん、最後、負けました。泣き、でも次はきっと。はるかさん、原神も配信する予定でしたが、ちょっと休憩とかしたいので、配信を終了します。はるかさん、ご視聴ありがとうございました。